Welcome back to the Iron Size Podcast. I'm sitting here with Joel Evans. Joel, what's up?
What's up, brother? Good to be here.
It's good to have you, man. So you're a Bay Area dude. You're in town for the holidays. We had this opportunity to sit down and rap a little bit about you, what you're doing, a little bit about your history. You're an interesting guy. I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, man. I was thinking as I was driving here just how serendipitous this was, because I'm a big believer in vibration, the law of attraction, which I'm sure you are, and just thinking like, how did this happen? I can't believe I'm going down to see Scott Howell right now. I'm like, I just contacted him like a month ago, right, and we just responded and just kind of hit it off. And I was telling my sister-in-law just too about connecting with you. I'm like, this is a guy who like I got on a phone with, and I thought it'd just be like a 10, 15 minute combo. And we were on the phone for like 45 minutes. Yep. So, I just feel blessed to be here, and just, I don't think things happen for an accident,
Look, man, I couldn't agree with you more. I am definitely a moon, sun, and stars kind of guy. And when you get opportunities, you take advantage of them just to see, first just to see maybe where it goes. And as you mentioned, here we are. And there's so much good that's sort of come out of this. There's been a little bit, obviously, exchanges back and forth since we originally chatted. And I didn't know a lot about you until we had that chat. It was interesting to me to find out or kind of dig a little deeper, listen to some of your podcasts. You've got a pretty, we were just talking about this off air. There's nearly 200 episodes. You want to talk about your podcast a little bit?
Yeah. So it's called the Hacked Life Podcast. I originally got the idea, the Hacked Life, because I was into biohacking, which now people get this term biohacking wrong. They think I'm into transhumanism or something, like creating humans and clones. I could care less about that. Really, it comes from Dave Asprey's considered like the godfather of biohacking. And he coined the term because he was a computer hacker and he was not healthy. He was 300 pounds. He was overweight and he was trying to get better and optimize his health. And he found out that, guess what? The Western model wasn't helping him. He was doing everything they were telling him. He wasn't losing weight. He was more inflamed than ever. And so he started seeking out alternative health measures. And some of those, now we're starting to do it more regularly, from cold plunging to red light therapy to cryo to ozone therapy. And he used that and he got his health back. And so he coined the term bio, meaning like your biology, and then hacking. Like, what if we could use like hacks to get better? So I love that. And I was just falling in love with that many, many years ago. I've been falling in love with, because just things I didn't know. And I'm like, man, I think I'm a pretty, healthy guy, but I've never heard of ozone therapy. I'm like, what? This destroys cancer? Like, how come we're not talking about this? So I absolutely fell in love with it. Now, on the same side, I absolutely hate biohacking because I think too many of us, we're like, oh yeah, just hack this, hack that. And you can hack your way to wellness. And you can hack your way to fitness. You can hack your way to having, millions of dollars. And I'm here to tell you, no, you cannot.
Yeah, it's interesting. What is the definition of hack? I mean, I've actually never looked it up. I'm curious what yours is because I kind of have my own.
Good question. If I were to look it up, I'm thinking it's a shortcut, right?
That's exactly what would come to mind.
Yeah, it's a shortcut. What I like to tell people though, the way I like to reframe it is, and hacks, like, because I fell in love with biohacking. Man, it just made me like, what is this ozone therapy? Like, you can get rid of mold, man, I want to learn more. Now, so I fell down that route. But what I love about these hacks is, let's just say someone starts a hack because their sleep is off. Hacks can at least start the conversation.
Yeah.
And at least it can nudge people in the right direction. Maybe they start taking melatonin now. Maybe they start wearing blue light blocking glasses. It starts to at least be fun and start the conversation. But again, I'm here to tell you, you need to invest in mastery. You need systems and you need protocols. You'll never hack your way to ultimate wealth, wellness, whatever.
Yeah, you got it. I love the way you kind of wrap that up at the end there because, well, two things. One, that's very interesting what you said. I guess I never looked at it as a kind of a gateway into a conversation. But it is things that people are curious about. And a lot of times these things revolve around technology or a gadget. And there's no shortage of those out there in the market or the marketplace, specifically with like the health and wellness, fitness side of things. Whether it's in a capsule or in a band or some type of wearable or something that you have going on. Most people have seen those, or they have a friend that has one, and they're open to a conversation about it, which, yes, if you can have an in-depth or an intelligent conversation about health and wellness, fitness, at a deeper level, what a great way to get into it. I never looked at that and credited it that way.
Yeah.
But on the same side, it's the shortcut is the exact sort of definition I would come up with hack. And I've never, ever in my 25 plus years in this business or, nearly 47 years on this earth, ever found a shortcut that really gives you any long-term promise or get you a result that you can kind of hang on to, I guess is my point. You'll get you a result sometimes, but it oftentimes is like this very small percentage of the bigger whole. And so like so it may give you that 1% edge or that 2% edge. Now, listen, if you're an elite athlete, if you're competing, to put food on your table, if you are in a different situation, if you're a very unhealthy individual and you mentioned the cancer, awful. I want every single fucking thing I can possibly get in my camp. And so if that means if there's a little bit of this or a little bit of that might be helping me, I'm doing it.
100%.
But there's this huge, huge middle ground and all the context in between. And what I love about your show, and I've listened to several episodes, I'm certainly not at 185 or whatever it is you got out there yet, but there's these little things, these little nuggets that you're dropping along the way. And it all revolves around what you just said is that this might be able to help you, but here's all the other stuff that you got to be aware of. And that if you focused on, would probably make a greater difference. But so many cool guests that you have on. And then you're also bringing your own piece to the table. Like, hey, so some of this is when you listen to your podcast, The Hack Life, you'll hear experts in a certain field, and it's diverse, man. It's kind of all over the place, in a really entertaining kind of way. And then the other side of it is you giving your piece and kind of filling in the gaps and the blanks, and not letting people get too far off the path of what are we really trying to get accomplished here, which is live a more vibrant, healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, and thanks for saying that about the guests being diverse. That has been always my plan. Was I want alternative health practitioners, people that are doing something different in the world, or even I'm a huge just student of mindset, again, vibration and meditation, all these things. So I love to bring those experts into it as well, and then people like yourself, just people that are disruptive and that are doing something that the other part of the industry is not doing in health, wellness, fitness, anything like that. I want to talk to those people. If you're doing the regular stuff, don't come on my show.
Yeah, no, I get you. Because the other stuff has been said so many times. And again, look, some people, there's value in it all. But yeah, like that term disruptor, it's interesting. I don't really think of myself that way, but I guess I am. And I guess the show is in that it's kind of attacking things at a little bit of different angle. It's not always the sexiest stuff. And I think that's one of the things you're bringing to the table too, is it's not always the sexy angle, but it's an angle. And angles are important, especially in a game of inches and seconds, which is life in a lot of cases. So there's other parts to this too, and that so you have the podcast, you have all this sort of this background and this expertise, you're helping people, but it goes beyond that. You want to talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing as a coach?
Yeah, so just over the last year, well, I don't know how far we're going to go back, but I lost my job. I had a steady 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Yep.
As a first responder here, actually in San Francisco, I was a police officer. So, that was something I did for almost 15 years. And in the background, though, I knew at some point I was going to leave police work. It was something that I started at 25 years old. Absolutely loved it. Thought I would retire doing it. Nothing else I was going to do anything different. But I started becoming disenfranchised with it at probably about 6 years in or so. And it was really around the time of the birth of my son. So just a lot of things probably happened. My mom had cancer, breast cancer. I was always a health and wellness, like fitness guy, but I felt just vulnerable that my mother-in-law also was dealing with health issues as well as my mom. And here I am, I can't help these people.
Right.
And I felt like I want to do something more. What can I do? What can I want to change career. I want to help people in a different way. Because I felt like law enforcement, I felt like I wasn't helping. I wasn't serving to my fullest. I felt like I was being restrained to what I knew I was potentially able to do. And I didn't like it. And because I was feeling this restriction from all the sources that be, and also I just felt like I was being weaponized a lot as a pawn for some political agenda depending what the flavor of the month was. And that bothered me. I don't want to be a pawn anymore. And I fell into the world of podcasting actually. While I was sitting with my son and I was rocking my son on our rocking chair, and I was a typical new parent. I was sitting there for 2 hours with him just
desperate for him to go to sleep. So been there.
Yeah,
man.
it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They tell you not to do that. And I knew cognitively, don't do that. I did it. And so here I am sitting for 2 hours. But if anybody knows me, I'm like, no, I got to be growing. I got to be learning. Like, what can I be doing? Big fan of Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy. That was like kind of the foundation. So I found a podcast. I'm like, oh, there's these free podcasts. This is amazing. And I started surrounding myself and just bombarding my mind with all these entrepreneurs and people that started business. And I go, I could do that. Lewis Howes, all these guys doing great podcasts. And I go, I could do that podcast. And so that's kind of what happened. And so in the background, I started getting all these new naturopathic, certifications, a life coaching cert, studied what great podcasters were doing. I wanted to learn the art of it because I knew one day I was going to launch my podcast. And so I remember like 2016 or so, I was getting ready to launch my business, all this great stuff. And then I went and had a second kid, which is not a bad thing, but in terms of
game changer.
Yeah. In terms of me being a great dad, I knew I couldn't do that, have a side business. My wife wasn't working. And so she was full-time mom. I knew that I couldn't provide for the family economically, as well as be a good dad. So I shelved it, kept getting certifications in the background. And I knew one day I'm going to launch this podcast. And that came around 2019. Unbeknownst to me, it was like the end of the year 2019 when the pandemic hit. And so that's when I launched it. And I kind of started launching in the background also my health coaching, my holistic health coaching. And then just recently in the last year or so, I've really focused on metabolic health and weight loss from a holistic perspective. As we know, I'm really glad I did, because when you look at the pandemic, and you talk about this too, I mean, the people that did the worst were the people that were metabolically not healthy.
Correct.
And so I'm really passionate about that, and as you are, and just getting people better. And I don't help people lose weight. I get them healthy first. And when you're healthy, you can't be overweight.
It's generally it's interesting when people are chasing health, all the good side effects that happen, one of which is weight loss and immunity and just self-esteem, self-respect, drive, all of those things. Feeling better generally means living better. But it's interesting to me that you moved from being a help giver in one capacity to being a help giver in another capacity, and that you always had an eye for that, and it was kind of in you. And I find like the great ones, right? The best coaches, the best cops, that's internal. It's just that they're wired that way. It's in their DNA. But I also find that those great ones are always at some point disenfranchised with the process or with the goings on around them, like in the industries that they're working within, whether that be health and fitness or in police work, at some point, which triggers them to change or make a change and do something differently. And that usually starts with mindset. And we can talk a little bit about that. So I'd like to talk about that, because you went through a lot of years of stuff. So we got 2 kids, right? We've been a first responder. We've been a police officer. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, let's talk about your history there, because there were critical incidents there in 2019 that basically were the catalyst for the change in how you're impacting people now. So maybe you could take us up to that point.
So I'll start when I just started as a police officer. We'll go there. We'll Tarantino this. We'll go back in time.
Yeah, I love it.
So yeah, 25 years old. Got out of college. I went to UC Davis, and my major was international relations and Italian. That didn't do much for me, right?
Okay.
But I thought, so here's the thing, right? I thought I was going to work maybe for the FBI. My dad, so check this out. My dad he was a cop. And I told myself, I'm not going to be like my dad. Like my dad, I'll be way better than him. So I'll be FBI, because FBI is better than local police. Of course, everybody knows this. So that's what I told myself, and I didn't want to be anything like him. Yes, I knew about police, and believe it or not, my grandfather was a San Francisco police officer before him. So lo and behold, so here's what happens.
It's in the genes.
Apparently. So I apply for the FBI right out of college, and I'm just sitting there waiting for them to get back to me, and it's a long process. Nothing's happening. So I start selling cars right out of college, because I needed to make money. I'm living with my dad, and my dad says, I remember one day I'm walking up the stairs just after like a long day, and he goes, "Hey, buddy." He goes, OPD's hiring, Oakland Police. And I look over at him and I go, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go. Because, and he had told me, and he was smart though, because my dad said, listen, he said, I know you want to do this FBI thing, but I think you're really going to like local law enforcement. Just do it, get 2 years of experience, and then go do the FBI thing. You'll have experience now, and you'll be able to do it. I go, great. I don't want to live at home anymore with you. Not that he was bad or anything. It's just, I want my independence. I want to move on. And,
totally get that.
Yeah. And so I applied to the Oakland Police Department. They were hiring. It was at a time when they were ripping and roaring. They needed bodies. They were, law enforcement historically goes through these
ebbs and flows, man.
Ebbs and flows where they're hiring a lot, and then all of a sudden they're not hiring for 2 years. And so I got on the lucky wave. I got on the lucky wave and got hired. I didn't apply to too many departments, really. And Oakland picked me up. And there were some things I later found out my background that almost didn't get me hired. Nothing crazy, but just I guess the psychiatrist or whatever didn't like me. I kind of found out, which was odd. I thought I was likable, but anyways, so yeah, I got hired, and I knew nothing about Oakland other than the Oakland A's. Really, that's it. My parents, we would go to this Coliseum as a kid. I'd go watch games, but I knew nothing about it. Had I known more about Oakland, I probably would have never done it. Just because, you have these own fears and stuff. But Oakland, for anybody that doesn't know, it's like top 5, dead or alive, one of the most dangerous cities in the United States.
Has been for a lot of years.
Yeah. At least when I was there, it was top 5, either robbery capital or definitely top 5, maybe number 1 for violent crimes.
Right.
We led in homicides for a long time. That number has diminished.
That's gone back and forth between places like Chicago, New York City. Yeah.
They take the cake. Philly, St. Louis, and those cities will take the cake for homicides. But even when they were winning in homicides, we would always be proud that in Oakland, we led in like major crimes. So that'd be like assault with a deadly weapon. Anybody also that knows, we would always credit. We always like to say as an Oakland police officer, we actually probably would have led in homicides, but Highland Hospital, they're just so good. They're one of the best trauma units, and they save people. You have no idea the work they're doing.
No, I do, because, and I was clued into that a long time ago, but recently I was reminded of that here in the Silicon Valley, particularly the city of San Jose, which is a very densely packed city with a lot of people, and it does have a lot of violent crime, unbeknownst to a lot of people. While the violent crime is happening, the homicides are generally pretty low. And a lot of that has to happen the reason that happens is because of the quality of our trauma units here in the city. We have several of them. And so if you get shot or stabbed or beat up, or whatever, assaulted, if you get picked up, right, and you get taken to one of these trauma centers, you stand a way higher than average chance of coming out the other side. And so if people aren't dying, we're not generally hearing about it. Again, I don't want to compare it to Oakland. It's not Oakland, but that's a very good fact to bring up. That particular hospital is legendary in the world of trauma medicine, and that's great, especially if you're a cop working on the streets of Oakland, because if the shit went down and, for God forbid, you have to go in there, right? That's a place you want to be. Yeah,
100%. So, didn't know anything about it. Hit the streets. I still remember my first day. When I hit FTO, I was in deep East Oakland, because there's West Oakland. That was how it was divided. It was West Oakland, maybe Central Oakland, you'd call it, or East Oakland. And then there was deep East Oakland. And I remember just being overwhelmed with just stimulus. We went to a call of a theft at the Walmart parking lot on San Leandro. And then—
Sounds pretty normal, right?
Regular run-of-the-mill kind of thing. As we're leaving that to go to another hot call, some woman is yelling out her window at us, flagging us down. Officer, you gotta come do this. And I remember my FTO just looking over at her and being like, yeah, we're not doing that. And just kept on driving. And I'm just as a kid, 25, I'm like, wait, shouldn't we be helping her? Or how do we prioritize? Right now, it's simple. And I know why he was like, yeah, we're gonna go do this. Your problem is not that big of a problem. And, but I just remember that we have 3 calls at once. How do you make these decisions? The radio is going off, all the time. And so that was Oakland, just very, very, very violent, very busy. To this day, I know, there's always historically understaffed, and they're just busy. The FBI actually did a study showing that 3 years in Oakland is the equivalent of 18 years anywhere else. So I always think of Oakland as like the Harvard of like police school of police work. Like
graduate school right now.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way until like I had actually been there. And so you just learn so fast because, again, we're understaffed. There wasn't enough people and the volume of calls. You know, the interesting thing, and we'll talk later, is that I went to San Francisco, but San Francisco, everybody rides in 2-man units. That's not normal. Like Oakland, you're a single man unit and you're expected to handle your area, your beat, your sector, all of that. And then sometimes even more because other, you
need help. Yeah.
Need help.
That district needs help. You got to send cars, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Talk about, because you're out there, you're stretched already. Talk about community relationships. Does that give you time to actually have a conversation and really feel like you're being helpful to the community? Or is this just like, I'm here to put a Band-Aid on this problem. Let's make this go away. What do we need to do to make this go away? And then move to the next thing? I don't know. I don't know if that's articulated very well, but maybe you can talk about that.
Early on, I didn't notice the difference. I knew this was the pace. Like I didn't know anything different. It was just fast paced. And I really didn't interact with the community. I felt like that much. I was only dealing with like victims, suspects. For me too, there was no follow-up. Like a lot of agencies, right? You will take they're slower. So they will see a case all the way through. I don't. As a patrol officer, all I'm doing is just right in the beginning of it. And then an investigator gets in and they decide whether they're going to actually look at it, if there's any leads and if they can do anything. So I think part of me was probably because I was distanced from the public. There was no community relations, to be honest with you. It was honestly, you were considered warriors. At least when I was coming through the Oakland Police Department, and you were there to prevent and stop crime. So my mission every day was going out looking for bad guys. So I wasn't even looking for, and honestly, in the area that I was in,
there's probably no shortage of that.
That's true. That's very true. I remember actually in the academy, we were learning about what is a high crime area. What is a high, because when they look at case law and, this will come into whether you're going to detain somebody or something. You need to know if it's it matters if it's a high known crime area, coupled with some other, factors allow you to make a stop on somebody. So the instructor in the academy goes, all right, everybody, look at this. Here's a map of Oakland. You see this? And he looks at the entire map. He goes, this is all a high crime area. And that didn't make sense at the time. Then I got out. I go, oh, I get it now. Now I know what he means, because he wasn't lying. Like, crime it didn't matter where you were at. It was going on. And you probably made an arrest somewhere, even in the affluent areas. But I really didn't, in my day-to-day contact, there was no community relations. I didn't have time to go to shop owners and communicate with them. Now, I will say this, within a year and a half, I transferred to they call that a community policing unit.
Okay.
And so I wasn't mandated by the radio. Calls are going off. A priority. I didn't have to go to those.
Okay.
Because I was doing my own thing. So that's when I actually started to build those relationships, really like connect with people. And our job was really to figure out what are these long-term problems, especially if, let's say, it's a drug dealer on a house. If you're in patrol, you don't have time to do surveillance. You don't have time to...
Yeah, you just articulate. You're running all over the place.
You're
almost
running all over.
Like a chicken with your head cut off.
100%. So that unit, I was able to actually, because of that, it was project oriented. And so you were able to actually focus on long-term projects, work with people like the city attorney to get things abated. And so that was actually the first time I got a chance to really see, and I think really connect on a more human level with people, which was valuable for me, because I didn't connect that way. It was just, like I said, it was really, you're either a suspect or a victim. There was no in between.
Yeah, I was just I guess the follow-up question to that is that, how did that impact you as a person? How did that impact you going home from work every day? And how do you relate to winning and losing in that situation? Like, am I making a difference or am I not making a difference versus I ticked, maybe in that other situation is that patrol officer that's running around I ticked all these boxes today. I came home. Maybe I helped somebody. Maybe I didn't, but I'm not even going to get followed up with on what happened today. I got to go home, recharge the batteries, and come back and do it again the next day. So I guess the question in that is when you were on this other unit and you did get out into to where you were having these communications at a different kind of level, and there was a little bit more follow through, and there were communications up the chain as well as with the people on the street. How did that impact you? Did you see a difference? So first off, the question is, I guess, did you see a difference? Did you feel like you were making a difference then, maybe versus before? And if it did, how did that impact you?
So I think I felt like I was also like, I think a kid when I look back. I just turned 40, so I was 25. Like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Fair enough.
And if you were to ask me that 25 when I was going just on patrol, like I thought I was making a difference then. Like, I mean, I'm curbing crime left and right. Like
You're putting bad guys in jail.
People
right?
are going to jail. Like I'm preventing violence from happening. So if you're getting guns off the street or you're arresting someone for drugs, it was very rewarding as a young officer. Now, I think with the politics and everything, and I think honestly, I think it's just the lifespan of an officer. I would almost wonder, what is the lifespan before they start to become jaded, right? They start to become like, this isn't worth it. And we do that as cops because we start saying, well, we start thinking 20 steps ahead. Like, well, why am I going to arrest this guy when I know S.F.P.D's going to kick the case and then this is going to happen? No one's going to really do anything. And so you end up talking yourself out of doing anything in the first place. So at 25 and those first 5 years, I was so proud of who I was as an Oakland police officer, that I thought I was making a huge difference. Now, when you fast forward and then after I got into that unit, it was just as rewarding. And I think the reason being was because I was with a team. So when you're in patrol, you're built into teams as well. And there's that camaraderie. It's the same thing. There was probably like 20 of us total. And we were broken up into smaller teams of like 8 individuals with 4 different sergeants, but we worked collectively on projects. So it was I think even more rewarding just because the projects were bigger and you would get to see kind of the outcome. And it was different exposure. It wasn't, so I was no longer going A priority, and so things might've been a little bit slower. But the exposure was just different. I was also there was times when it's really funny too when they talk about Oakland, like, oh, you were a community policing officer, like you didn't do much. Well,
we call those we would think of that maybe as like a community service officer here, which is who basically like if your car gets broken into, they're not sending you a uniformed officer, sworn officer. What you're dealing with is a community service officer.
Yeah.
They're wearing the baby blues instead of the dark blues.
Yeah, completely not in Oakland. So the big difference there was, yes, I wasn't going to calls. I was also once a month, I would have to lead a community meeting.
Wow.
So There was a PowerPoint and everything, and I would go through crime trends and just explain. And I was a liaison for the community. So they got to actually it was like to touch and feel an officer and be like, he's my, beat 20. That's Joel. I get to email him and bother him about every problem because you're not going to bother the normal patrol officer. They're just going to blow you off just because they don't have the time. So they would throw everything my way. But also on that same, so you would think, oh, he's just, again, you're just for the public eye, you get to, lead these community meetings. Yes, that was one part of it. But the other part of that people didn't know is like, we were tons of buy-bust operations, surveillance, and just big time projects. And a lot of actually, believe it or not, nuisance issues would come up a lot. So that's where I kind of transitioned.
That is an interesting dichotomy, right? Between what you were doing to what you got to end up doing there. Before we move into going over to San Francisco, there's something you brought up there that it just kind of dawned on me. You were talking about the veteran, 15-year vet cop that's out there on the street who's talking themselves out of a particular thing, why they're going to be proactive or not be proactive or enforce this or not enforce that. And I find that to be how you explained it. Maybe I'll just go back and kind of re-explain it in that you're thinking 20 steps ahead already. And you're already justifying to yourself why you shouldn't do it because of all of these other factors that are outside of your control versus what's inside your control. Like you mentioned, like S.F.P.D's gonna throw this case out anyway. It's gonna just be a bunch of paperwork that I'm gonna do for nothing, right? This person is gonna be back out on the street tomorrow. It's a non-arrestable offense at the end of the day. So I just keep letting the gap grow in terms of how I choose to approach my job, and which ultimately impacts the citizens on the street. So I bring that up because you guys are humans, right? As cops out there, you're just dudes. You're You're just women out there that are the same as anybody else. And I relate this to like health and wellness. You get far enough down the path. You mentioned when you were 25 years old, like it's all piss and vinegar, right? You know, and
I'm indestructible. No one can, you know who I am? That's how you feel.
You don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. And you also, there's a little bit of the energy is a little bit different. Their liability is different as well. You don't have as many things on your plate, right? You don't have kids and relationships and mortgages to pay and all that kind of stuff. And you're learning as you go. Very similarly to humans that approach their health and wellness the same way. And they get to a certain point where there's just points along the way. And we're at the holidays, you know, people are looking around like, fuck it. I'm going to have that, you know, I'm just going to binge drink tonight. You know, fuck it. I'll just get back on the wagon tomorrow. Or, you know what, like, it doesn't really matter. I can have this, you know, I can eat from one end of the house to the other today and for the next 3 days because who really fucking cares anyway? I'm already unhealthy. I'm already fat. Like, you know, I already feel shitty about myself. So this isn't going to make it any worse for me. It's the same mentality. It is the exact same. You're already thinking 20 steps ahead of how this either is or isn't going to impact you and all the things outside of your control, when in that very moment, you have total control over the decision that you make. And how that decision gets influenced is based on where your mindset is and where you let your head go. And you mentioned a few of those things at the beginning of the show today and kind of how you try to get people into this mindset of thinking differently about their health. And we talk about hacks and things like that. That hack maybe being like, what is the thing that brings me back to home base here? Because that is stinking thinking is the way I would put it. But it also, I guess what I'm trying to do is draw a parallel to, for people out there that look at police officers and law enforcement work is this very black and white type of canvas that you, if this, then that every time. And if it doesn't happen like that every time, then people should be chastised, reprimanded, lose their jobs, be held up in media as a villain, or demonized in some way. It's fucking ridiculous because you're the same person, man, and you're making decisions in your life. It just happens to be in a different way. And while you might not think about it this way, making poor decisions about your health, about your mental health, about your physical health, your physiological health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your financial health, ultimately down the path, that does end up burdening somebody. It will. Somebody's financially has to pay for this. Somebody has to deal with the fallout emotionally. Somebody has to deal with your poor state of health. Like then there's an insurance system. It's not free. Medical care is not fucking free. We all pay. We end up paying for it at the end. Somebody's paying for you to take that pill. Somebody's paying for you to stay in that hospital bed. And that brings us kind of back into this transition now as you're going to San Francisco PD, because I think that mentality leads into a story about you and how you ultimately left San Francisco. But maybe talk about your transition there. Why did you leave to go to San Francisco? And how did that happen? And what happened from there?
Yeah, so actually a couple of things I want to hit on just what you're talking about, because even with OPD, by the way, there was a chance I was going to get laid off. And this was during... there was actually I can't remember what, it was like 2011. They were the city ran out of money.
Financial decisions.
Yeah, there was stuff going on.
Oakland's been out of money for as long as I've been on the face of the earth. Like,
they actually did something really creative. I remember they sold like the Henry J. Kaiser building or something back to themselves. They did like this switcheroo. So then they did it. And then when the fiscal year hit, they bought it back so they could basically switch. You know, they made they lost 10 million, they got 10 million.
I mean, there's so many crazy things that have happened there. Like how did the football team stay there as long as it did? How did the Raiders continue to stay there as long as they did? How does it still have, like, how are the A's even still there? I mean, the stadium is falling down. They've taxed the people. They've done all kinds of things and they can't afford to have police officers. The city is one of the poorest in the nation. Like it's certainly financially, it's always been challenged. So no surprise that, this week we don't have enough money to pay police officers. So let's lay them off, despite them being stretched and this being top 5, on all the lists right across the nation in terms of crime. Anyways,
I remember my sergeant said, "Joel, you have nothing to worry about. It's never happened in history. It won't happen here." it happened. They laid off 80 people. And at the height, they thought they might lay up to 200. And I was number 180. I had 3 years in and I was like number 180. So I started looking for jobs because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I got hired actually by BART PD. And I turned it down. Probably shouldn't have, but just because like when you think about like how, man, that would have been like so much easier, right? But I remember I had some close friends and people, I was only 3 years on and I still loved the job. And I remember people making fun of me saying, like my partner at the time, he was like, can you imagine? He's like, you're going to be at the Fruitvale BART station and you're going to be like this, just holding on, chugging onto the train. And you're going to look over and you're going to see me in the Fruitvale going code 3. And you're just going to wonder, man, like, I wonder what he's doing. And I couldn't live with that. So I actually, once I found out I was not going to lose my job, I actually stayed with OPD. So just to kind of show you, like, my mentality was then is like, I'm going to work for like I want to work for the most like whatever dangerous police agency on the West Coast. And this is what I want to do. Like, I want to just keep pursuing that. And at the time though, we were talking about federal oversight and how OPD is stuck in this. And I was becoming, even then I was like, this is just not fair. Like I'm all about transparency. I think as a profession, it's still one of the most noblest professions you can work, police work. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it's a great job, but I was being, again, I felt like we were being twisted and turned and like all the accountability was stacked on us and nobody else. And just some of the things that they were calling 21st century policing, it was a joke. And so I had issues with that because I felt like I couldn't do what I really wanted to do in terms of just operating at the highest level in serving the people of Oakland. And so I had to figure out a way, and I talked about the mindset. I actually like kind of took a second and just was like, man, what do I love to do? And it's like arresting people, putting bad guys in jail. I love doing that. But how can I do it at this high level and not also be criminally charged or get into trouble, but like limit my exposure to being possibly or getting in a shooting or anything like that. And so what I did actually, I was journaling. I remember this. I was journaling. And what I did is I just changed my game. Instead of making like 5 stops a day, just stopping random cars and people and just, oh, that car looks shady or whatever. And I had a reason, of course, to pull it over. Instead of doing all of that, I just switched to who's wanted. And I would just work with investigators. And I'm like, who are you looking for? And it was actually more exciting. I would drum up as much intel as I could, learn kind of about where I think I might spot them. I would look at their history of stops in the past. And then from there, I would write down like my top 5 guys every day. Like, what's my mission? I had my projects and then and my partner and I would go look for them. And it worked out great for me because I'd get all this attaboys, I'd get all this, hey, praise, good job, Joel, you and your partner. Because they would then, anytime you got like a bad guy that was wanted for something big, they would announce it like, like in the bulletin, like, oh, congrats to, Officer Elworth. And they would say, great, he got the 187 suspect off or the 245 or the 211, right? So I just changed my game. And so kind of I'm just listening to you talk. It's a mindset reframe. And maybe for some people, whether it's the holidays or whatever it is, you've got to maybe reinvent yourself constantly and then reframe things. Or like, I just started asking myself a different question, a better question, which is what would make this great? Because I still like the job, but I just don't like what's happening. How can I make this work? And so that's actually what I did before I left to San Francisco.
That's a very proactive way of policing. It's just in a different way.
So the great thing about that, Scott, too, is 1 stop a day. So I wasn't stopping tons of people. 1 stop a day, 1 report, and 1 arrest. And they were the easiest reports because I would just say,
This is the bad guy.
This is the bad guy. He was wanted. I found him. The end. And it was great. And then I still got all this praise, and me and my partner got all this praise, and I felt good, and I felt like I'm still doing what I'm called to be doing.
You're painting a very positive picture. I mean, outside of the things that I think a lot of police officers face, particularly now, it's different now, but that's not fair. I retract that statement. When I say it's different, it's always changing, right? It's always evolving, so it's going to be different. So when I say different, I don't mean anything other than it's always going to be different. Tomorrow it'll be different.
Real quick on that note, what's really funny is as officers, it's one of the most negative professions because we constantly we're around negativity. It's just a cycle of negativity. And even I'm telling you, like, the things were changing, right? From the top down. But again, you mentioned this, you always have that locus of control of what you want to control. And that's how I felt. I'm like, what can I control? I control my happiness. How can I be happy at work every day and still serve to the highest? And that was the answer I got. But really quick, I was just thinking, there's this guy at OPD, he's a sergeant, Bob Crawford. He did like 35 years. It was just, people were like, when are you going to retire, man? If you go online, you can find a video of Sergeant Bob Crawford in the 1970s. And it's a short YouTube clip. And the news or whatever is interviewing. They're like, and he's doing a ride along. And he's like, yeah, the things they're making us do right now, they're making us track uses of force. I mean, this is bullshit. This is going to destroy the department. And I'm just laughing because I'm like,
Imagine
oh my God,
yeah.
like in 2000 or when I was a cop in 2010, in that era, when I first started, we were saying the same thing. Oh my God, they just created this new board. Right. In the 1970s, they were doing this new board was created. And Bob Crawford's complaining about it then. So police work is always the same, but different.
Yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, it's different, but it isn't.
Yeah.
But that said, again, just going even to that statement is this very positive outlook kind of on things. And it's not always like that all the time, right? There's ebbs and flows of feeling that negativity versus feeling that positivity. Generally, the negativity, in your case, it sounds like it drives this trying to get back to positive, right? But you can get really caught up in that other stuff. Look, working on the streets of Oakland couldn't have been all that fun all the time, man. Going back to the 3 years equals 18 years, Oakland versus anywhere else or most other departments. Anything you run into out there that really stands out as kind of a career changer in terms of maybe mindset, maybe the way you approach policing, anything like that you can talk to us about?
We were talking about just before, and you didn't know about it, but I told you, I was like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I was in an officer-involved shooting.
No, I did not know that. Yeah, and I said time out because I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
Because that's, and I want to preface this with, when I ask these questions, it's not about sensationalizing things for me at all. That is the furthest thing from what I try to get out of these conversations. I think more of it is to bring awareness. And I say there's a lot of people out there on social media that are doing that now through body cam footage. And, all you got to do is scroll through. There's dozens of pages out there that are showing these types of incidents. But that's only just now started. Like we haven't had the opportunity. And when I say we, I just mean the collective we, haven't had the opportunity to take in this information any other way. We've only heard things like a story you're going to tell us right now, and then been left to the newspaper or to the TV news channel or to some, I don't know, TV show that tried to, basically use parts of true events to put together some type of a story or whatever. And we're left to our own to really think through this. And that's not hey, was this right or was this wrong?
Yeah.
And there's so much context and things that don't get put into that. And at the same time, there's all the history of policy changes, right? Of how, again, the perception of what police work is and what are the citizens really think is all been decided based on these types of things that happened years ago. So whenever I ask the question now about things people may not know about, is to give them additional perspective as to maybe how we got to where we are and how things have changed, or when maybe the things haven't changed. Again, different but not different, or even, the culture of how things are approached now versus maybe how they were approached before, the things that people are up against. So I just want to preface that by putting this out there, because we've had other officers on the show that have talked about these things, and that's not why I invite them in here. I didn't know about that until 2 minutes before we started. So can you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I just want to say also on this note, because I always think I always kind of like think above like the metacognitive. I'm always wondering like why is there so much controversy over these body cam footages? Because I look at it as an officer, I'm like, this was justified. But I think here's the biggest issue that people need to realize is and like you said, what I've come to the terms with is the public, they have no idea what we do.
None.
And they really do believe, and I use my brother-in-law. He's an amazing person. I'm staying at his house in San Francisco, and he is a gentle giant. He wouldn't hurt a soul. And if I were to ask him, hey, Seth, how's San Francisco in terms of crime? Like, do you feel like you're pretty safe? Chill. It's fine. He'd be like, I remember when they were talking about S.F.P.D, they were, this was again during, I think it was the Black Lives Matter during like 2019, 2020. Again, it's just sensationalism. If you're actually on the ground, you know, this is sensationalism. They were saying, they're no longer allowing S.F.P.D to have military weapons. Okay.
What is that?
What is that? And it got like sensationalized in the newspaper and like, yeah, that's a bad idea. They shouldn't have military weapons. Well, they were saying they were going back to like general orders from the 1906 like gold rush when SFPD had bayonets. We haven't had bayonets, guys, since maybe 1906 as a police officers. So yes, I agree. We probably shouldn't have bayonets. You are right.
By the way, I haven't ever seen one, and nobody's anybody else since the early 1900s. So
yeah. So I was telling Seth, I'm like, it doesn't. Yes, you're right, Seth. We should, and but again, these are the same people that are also saying, yeah, I don't think the SWAT team should have gas. Well, of course you're saying that because you've never been in a real fight.
That's exactly right.
You've never gone one-on-one.
Never been punched in the face
with a bad guy.
You've never
fought for your life.
Ever.
Yeah. So of course you're saying that's inhumane for you. And I can empathize with people when they actually think that. But again, I remember one of my partners even said, we were fighting a guy on the ground and he's like, we knew we were in control, so it wasn't a big deal. But you get the hecklers and everyone coming around and it's like, and I've done this before, take out my handcuffs and go, here, you handcuff them.
Right.
You do it. Because I'm using, believe it or not, I'm actually trying to use the minimal amount of force possible to just, restrain this guy and package him up without I don't want anybody to get hurt. But that's a difficult task, especially if you've never been in a fight, guys, or tried that.
Train your combatives. Yeah.
Tony Blauer talks a lot about this too, where it's like, if there is no fight that is sexy. It just isn't. And people need to understand that in law enforcement, I've looked at even there's body, I'm like, man, that was totally justified. That looked terrible. It just is what it is. And I think we've never been exposed to that level of looking at what police officers go through. So when people see it, they're like, oh my God, that's violent. And it's like, yeah. It is.
Welcome to the real world.
They just didn't know it. And same thing with my brother-in-law. He has no idea. There's crimes going around his little neighborhood all the time. He's
oblivious to it.
But he goes to work, punches in every now and then.
Ignorance is bliss, man.
Yeah, goes to the park with his kids. And same thing with me. I lived there for 10 years in San Francisco. I don't think I ever really had any major incident. And so, but I knew what was going on. I knew what was going on in the background. You just don't see it. Even in the cities that are the quietest cities, there's always something going on. So people just don't know. And
it's the reality of the world we live in. I guess that's what I'm trying to make. So if I can bring a little bit more reality to people or, give people the opportunity to share a little bit more of that, I think it's valuable. Instead of being afraid of it or making a judgment call on it, just fucking listen. Just listen. That's all I'm asking, people to do. And I think if they listened a little bit more instead of running their mouth or running their thumbs on the keyboard on their phone or whatever else, they may learn something and just might leave a little space to gain a little bit of perspective, to think a little bit more critically,
100%.
A little bit more open about what's going on. So anyway, I'm glad you jumped in with that. So yeah, man, like I said, I had no idea you'd been in an officer-involved shooting. What happened?
Okay. So I remember 3 a.m., it's my Friday. I get off at 5. I was working 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Now, looking back at it, there's no reason I should be stopping any cars. It's my Friday. I should be looking at going home on a time.
This goes back to being a seasoned veteran.
Yeah, but I had a partner who was extremely proactive. And he was the kind of guy that would even complain like, man, like he'd be thinking about it at the end of the night. Like, can't believe we missed that car stop. Just like, dude, like I was a hard charger too, but like, man, what happens when you go home, man? Like, I'm pretty sure like people are committing crimes when you're not around. It's okay.
Let it go.
So I'm driving. He's in the passenger seat. We see this shady car drive by us at 3 a.m. Let's pull it over. Okay, sure. We're thinking whatever, get a late night arrest or something, go in. We got an hour to type this report. We'll be out still on time. Well, we flip a U-turn, go pull the car over, pulls to the side, does a little fake out. Car does a little fake out and then takes off on us. It actually flips a U-turn, so now it chases on us.
Crazy Ivan.
Yeah, so we're in the Fruitvale district in Oakland. So actually on Fruitvale Boulevard or Avenue, I think Boulevard. So it's just flying. Now it's going like 60, 70 miles per hour, but no one luckily is out at that time. So we give chase. The car, I remember I passed Foothill Boulevard and it all of a sudden like careens out of the way, like kind of loses control. He's just going so fast. I slow down, come up from behind it, and I can see that we throw the spotlights on. I can see the driver like manipulating the gear shift, like he's trying to get it back in gear. He's looking back, and I can tell like he wants to keep going. So I don't get out of the car. I'm kind of like waiting because I'm like, oh, this is going to continue.
We're going to keep going, right?
Yep.
Okay.
My partner gets out, challenges the guy. And what I mean by challenge is he gets out of the car, points his gun in that direction, and starts giving him commands like, hey, get out of the car, put your hands up, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the guy jumps out of the car and starts running towards my direction, the driver's side. Okay, so I'm like, well, I guess this is going to be a foot chase. So I get out of the car. As I'm exiting, I hear shots go off. Boom, boom. And anybody that's been in an officer-involved shooting, they know, I hadn't experienced this, but it's surreal. Like time slows down. And I can just, that auditory exclusion people talk about, like, whoa, I'm feeling, I'm like hearing these volleys go up, boom, boom, boom. My brain is like, I should be shooting too. Why am I not shooting? What can I be doing? What am I missing? So what happened was too, the guy is running towards my direction and he reaches into his waistband at the same time. My partner interpreted that as a threat. He's probably reaching to pull out a weapon. Also, mind you, where we're at, it was very odd that he chose to run towards my direction. So like he wanted to run behind us towards the car. He had all this free space to go away from us.
Okay.
It was atypical of a typical foot chase or someone running. Why would he not just run a different direction? So my partner interpreted that he was coming to attack me. By the time I come out of my holster and I'm out on target, probably 3 volleys have already went by. I hear more shots. Now I'm like super focused. I'm just looking at this guy's hands and I'm at the wall with my gun because I'm thinking I should be firing. Again, my brain, they call this sympathetic fire.
Yep.
I felt it. I thought I should be firing. Thank God I didn't because that guy ended up being unarmed. I remember he just collapses right in front of me. Right in front of me. And he's doing that agonal breathing. Right. And I'm like out of it. I'm whatever, condition black, whatever you want to call it. I'm not that out of it, but pretty revved up. I mean, the shooting just happened. I didn't fire.
This is an appropriate response.
I'm giving this guy, I'm like yelling at the guy's like practically dying and I'm giving, let me see your hands. So he can't listen. So it's like, okay. Then I kind of snap out of it. My partner, I snap out of it. Get this guy in. I snapped out of it. I don't know. He was probably, he knew what he was doing, right? My partner knows what he's doing. I have no idea like what he saw, what he's doing.
Right.
So quickly handcuff him. Then both of us are like, that car needs to get cleared. And there was somebody in there. I had no idea. There was a female in the car. She goes, what happened? I'm like, well, I think you know what happened, but okay. So I'm pretty sure she was high or whatever. So I handcuff her, clear the car that he was driving. Nobody else is in there. We start calling for units and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's what happened. I can kind of, well, I don't know if you want to ask me more questions. So
keep going.
Basically this guy, I mean, like I said, he's unarmed. He's a black guy. This is not going to be good. And this ended up being my partner's second shooting of an unarmed person. I will say this though, his first shooting was a guy from a stolen, I don't know all the details, but the guy was in a stolen vehicle, jumped out, bailed, hid in a bush, and then he said something to the effect of like, I'm going to shoot you all, and then like came out with nothing. So that was...
We actually see this pretty frequently. So that's not a tall, a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like something that's out of the question. Like this just sounds like, how could that even happen? We see that pretty frequently, the suicide by cop type stuff. I mean, now that we have body cams, we get to see that stuff pretty frequently. It's tragic, but at the same time, okay. So second officer involved shooting of an unarmed individual.
Unarmed, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not going to look good.
Yeah, it didn't. And the department, I think just from, again, it's very political, right? John Burris, anybody knows him in the Bay Area. He is notorious for suing law enforcement and actually winning a lot of cases. So this caused a lot of controversy. And of course, I think just from political pressures, my partner ends up losing his job. He ends up getting it back though. So, and that's very typical of Oakland. You see San Francisco, you see a lot of these major agencies will do that. And it's unfortunate. They'll just kind of cast the officer to the side and not invest in, for them, it's better that they agree with the findings And they will even tell you off to the side, just
take this. You'll be back.
You'll be back. Like not because of us, but like just fight it and get your jobs back. Oh, that's really easy to say. But for 2 years, an officer's life is dangling. He has no idea what's going to happen. Wonder if he's going to get hired again. And a lot of times he will, because they find out from a third-party arbitrator that it is justified. But from political pressures, OPD and many agencies will just simply say, whatever, we're just going to agree with the findings at this point to make it go away.
Guilty till proven innocent.
Yeah. The other thing that people don't understand is on the backside, even as officers, I'm asking myself, why?
So this is a great question. So these are the questions that I do have. Like you painted a picture there where your partner was already out of the car, has the guy at gunpoint. You are, again, you've been anticipating that he's taken off. You're in the driver's seat of the patrol unit, right? So you're late on that. You start getting out. Lots of things are going on. Your partner's shooting at somebody and you're not shooting at them. So there's a question, why? Why weren't you? You kind of just described a little bit of, again, being behind, but also in timing when I say that, just again, with the setup here. Also, what's going on in your head, right? There's this focus that's going on, this kind of maybe even like
super narrow focus.
Yeah, like just narrowing down on what's up. And then even still, though, after you're kind of coming out of it, there's a second volley and you're still not firing.
Correct.
Why are you not firing?
Yeah, so interesting, because this was asked about me from investigators and everybody. Why didn't you fire then? And then they would ask me also, then do you think what your partner did was justified?
Yeah, so that's the other part of this. Okay.
So this is brutal for me to have to, now looking back, it wasn't, I don't know. I mean, they can ask me that question, but that's not me to decide. Like, ask him. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. But
anything you say could be very influential.
100%. So the pressure on me of feeling like, man, I want to make sure that everything, I didn't think what he did was wrong. I just thought it wasn't my choice. And
I
why?
didn't see what he saw.
100%. So and his interpretation, and again, I don't even want to say I'm answering for him, because you can go find the documents and whatever was said back in the record, right? It's all public, and that was back in whatever 2008 or something. I have no idea, somewhere in that range. So you can find that out. But we're talking about angles in the beginning. It was angles. So if I were to show you on video, my partner had a side view of his hands. The suspect, when he reaches down into his waistband. Mm-hmm. So he's only seeing this angle, the left hand. From my angle,
he's bladed towards him. Yeah,
I can see the full torso. I can see the hands very clearly.
He's bladed towards your partner, and that's a very tough angle to see, right?
Tough angle. That, and again, I told you about the atypical running pattern.
Yeah, he's coming at you. Or towards you.
My guess is he was going to run behind us, which is very odd, and he crossed over the police car towards the driver's side. So my partner thought, okay, this guy is reaching for his waistband. He's most likely going to pull out a weapon. That's where bad guys hold it.
About to put rounds on you.
And he's going to go towards my partner. And I can't see his right hand. Those were all the factors that came into his mind. My mind, I'm thinking, well, one, I was behind a little bit because I thought this guy's going to get up and drive again. So let's just get ready for the car chase. So I was a little bit delayed getting in the car. And then the second thing is I could see his hands. I felt like I had very clearly saw his hands.
That's why you're not shooting.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, it was tense. I mean, just again, there's so many interviews from internal affairs we had to go into to homicide matter of fact, the homicide, one of the detectives who's an old school guy yelled at me in the interview. I don't know if it was even on record, but he absolutely lost it on me. Like telling me that it was my job to get out of the car sooner. I mean, I'm a 25-year-old, 26-year-old kid, I'm trying to process. I'm on no sleep, trying to process. I'm still trying to process what happened. This guy's yelling at me. So one of the investigators afterwards said, who was very well respected in the department, said, "You did the right thing, kid. So don't worry." Which was nice for me to hear, because just so much was going through my mind. I'm thinking I know the perspective is that I'm a coward. You didn't shoot. Why didn't you shoot?
That's the other part. It's like you froze up.
You froze.
You didn't actually see what you think you saw. You're just not cut out for this.
Yes. Yeah. And I just know, in OPD, there's that warrior mentality. So I'm sure there's people wondering. I know there's going to be chatter of
people talking shit.
What? Yeah. People talking shit. Why didn't Joel do it? overall, I don't think I really ran into too many issues with that. I'm sure maybe for some people, it wasn't for me to even care anymore, right? Like that's their issue. It's not mine. I could care less. So it didn't affect me too much there. I will say on the flip side though, just the stress I wasn't expecting just from being in, like I said, multiple, it didn't go to court. We were, what do they call it? It starts with a D. We were
Deposition,
and it was like a whole day deposition. Just being grilled. And that, if anybody's experienced that, and there's law enforcement officers that know that being sued and going to federal court, like that is intense. I mean, I feel like if you can do that, like any other examination is probably nothing. So that was pretty stressful. And then just at one point in the investigation, they were saying that I was a witness because I didn't do anything. I was just a witness. Then they were considering making me a suspect.
Wow.
Which that was also frightening, especially as a young officer. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to do my job. And here I am now going to be a suspect. This is crazy.
Suspect for what though? Conspiracy because you're covering up for your partner or what?
I mean, it
was considered. It never actually happened.
Basically, so because I would imagine just because we were writing together. So there would have been like, it's like, oh, you did it, then you're part of this. Yeah. You're part of this. He's now being considered a suspect in this case. Now you're going to be.
It's just if you're riding along, there's a drive-by shooting, you're driving the car, shooter's in the passenger seat.
I'm the accomplice, yeah. What was I doing to contribute to the factors? Maybe the way I parked the vehicle. Was my vehicle perfectly positioned like we were trained in the academy? No, it was actually, it wasn't bad given this is a dynamic involving situation, right? But
again, go back to the black and white stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing. That's the thing that I didn't even talk about. There is no black and white. And like you mentioned it, it's extremely gray. And that's why I think people have a huge problem with it, with use of force and everything, because they can see something, go, that's just tragic. And then they hear me go, yeah, but it's justified. It's like, what? Right. So, and that's the fact of the matter. And so the last thing I'll say is just the stress I didn't think of afterwards. So I remember coming back after this, trying to get back on the horse and just like, I didn't think it really affected me. I was sleeping fine. There was a couple of like nightmares, but like otherwise I was sleeping fine, getting on with my life. And I remember I went out and tried making some stops and just walking stops. That's what I call the walking stop, like when you stopped a person walking, a pedestrian. You know? And I remember just like getting their information and my hand was just shaking and I couldn't even write. I mean, I could not. I actually would just leave the stop. I would just pretend like they were good. I couldn't write down their name. That was like the only thing I felt like I still felt in control, but my hand would just not stop shaking. And I could not write like their name or date of birth. And I was just like,
man. That's the thing. What if you had to pull your weapon?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that took a while to go away. I mean, I don't know when that actually stopped going. Well, maybe like 6 months before. But then I would actually try to press myself, like, go make another stop. Like you're like, come on, Joel, like get it together.
Tough it out. Muscle through this.
This is not real. This is not real what you're experiencing. I didn't really talk to anybody about it either, So how did I cope with that? Right. And as a young officer, I didn't know how, other than just luckily, I think time kind of, made things better.
Maybe
really. And I don't know. Cause we talk about this too. It's like, there's people, I know guys that they get in an incident like that and their career is over.
Yep.
Not mine. It kept going. And so I always wonder, like, how is that the brain and the chemicals and everything? But then I also think, right, like what's deep buried in my mind? Yep. How does that show up too as me as a dad, right? Or in my relationship with my wife? Like what part of that is not turned on because I've buried it or whatever, right?
Yeah, I guess that's why I was saying, it might be nothing. I think people file things. We just recently had an officer on who was talking about how he files things, but he always makes sure he takes a sort of a self-inventory, at the end and frequently to make sure that the filing is appropriately done and we're not putting, I use this all the time, people listening are probably like, yeah, we've heard this, putting 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound box, right? And not expecting, what inevitably would happen with that over time. But interesting to think about. And again, this is one of however many incidents, and we've talked, the stat is like at any given time in the country right now, today there's going to be 10 officer-involved shootings out there. So there's going to be 10 other officers out that are dealing with similar similar, if not the same kind of experiences. And again, public's going to have perception. There's culture within the department. You should be looking out for your partner. Of course, you should be looking out for your partner, but I don't want to protect the bad guy. But that's not what I feel like I'm doing. He saw things that I didn't see. Like, I didn't have to shoot because the guy wasn't armed. I'm not a coward. I actually should be, at this point going, hey, this is the way the shit went down. Like, hey, man, good call. Maybe at this point, like he wasn't armed. Good call versus like you should have been shooting that guy too, and you guys should be going down together in a ball of flames or whatever else. Like that is wild to me. When we talk about the thin blue line and the things that go on behind the scenes, and all on top of that, all the stress that you're dealing with, and then having to go right back out there, right, and try and write a ticket that you can't do because you can't get your shit together, right? I mean, that's a very real part of the job, and that again is part of the bringing perspective to the realities that we're faced with, the citizens out here on the streets. Like we want these people to serve and protect us, but we're not doing a really good job of doing that for them. It's a two-way street, and a huge advocate for first responder mental health advocacy and making sure people are taking care of themselves. And part of it is talking about it. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Just for bringing it up and being transparent and honest about it.
One thing I wanted to just end on this note is just because I didn't bring it up, but we were talking about the why. Like, why did he do all this? Because I didn't know. You don't know. You don't know as an officer. I've gone into situations.
You mean the suspect? The suspect,
yeah. And I just want to give this caveat because I only told the story as, well, it's an unarmed guy that got shot. And it's like, well, that's fucked up, Joel.
Yeah. Why was he running?
There's always more to the story. And we later found out that this guy was, if you look at his track record, I mean, just carjacking. Those were like his last two arrests. Carjacking, violent stuff. That night, we found out that he had done a robbery that went bad and murdered a guy because it went bad. And so he was on a cocktail of heroin, cocaine, meth. He was out of his mind at that time. And so I think his belief, we don't know because we couldn't interview him, was that, oh shit, the cops, they know what I'm doing. And I believe he had bloody laundry from the incident that he was getting rid of. So he thinks that we didn't know anything. And so, again,
it's moon, sun, and stars, man.
You don't know these things, but you're trying to piece things together. That happens all the time. I always tell, like, law enforcement, again, talking about the gray area, I've gone into scenes where it's like, this much. The suspect is a tall white male. As you're walking into the building, the tall white male, I've had people go, that's the guy. And I'm like, I have to do something. Now the fight's on. Right. And so that's as much information as you got. And then, people are asking you, why'd you fight him? I'm like, I don't know. He matched the description. And that guy said, that guy, when I walked in. And usually it works out. But how do I know that for sure he's the guy? Then how do I dictate how much force I'm going to use to try to get this guy? I mean, all these things are coming. You're trying to synthesize this rapidly, so that you can act accordingly. And so sometimes you just don't know. And that's what you're given. And so, yeah, that's what makes the job so unique.
Again, like having to make decisions or split decisions and in the blink of an eye and expect it to be perfect every time is ridiculous. It's just not that's just not reality. Yes, there's gray. Not everything's black and white, but thinking like that in the worst situation on somebody's worst day, when they're hell-bent on whatever it is they're hell-bent on doing, that it's going to be a perfect decision it's not rooted in a lot of logic. That's fairy tales. So moving on from that, you mentioned there was a move over to San Francisco. So you're working for San Francisco PD. And how long were you at Oakland?
Almost 6 years.
All right.
Yeah.
And so then
month shy.
Then moving over into San Francisco, what triggered the move? So
I was telling you about that layoff period where I almost got laid off. Well, guess what? A lot of guys left OPD and then they came back. And they were like, I'm like, why'd you come back? This place is crazy. And they said, Joel, you don't understand. You don't go to these smaller agencies. You don't know what it's like to work there. And they just didn't enjoy it. And I think there's some adrenaline and everything that comes with the pride of Oakland. When you work there, it's hard to go then work for something else. Now, here's the interesting fact. Everybody that went to San Francisco, they were the only department that people never came back. One of them was my good friend. So I was in contact. I'm like, hey, what's up with San Francisco? What do you like about it? He's like, Joel, this place is great. Like, you can still be a cop out here. And they back you up. And it's a great, and it's big city problems like Oakland. So you'll love it. Okay. So I was really enjoying Oakland, but I'm like, I'll give it a shot. I'll apply. And if something happens, I'll go over. And so I applied in 2013. I got hired. So that was really it. Yeah, there was no other reason. Here's the thing with Oakland is that, like I mentioned, the trust factor for me wasn't there. Economically, I watched them throw officers to the side. They can't manage their books. And then the second thing is this whole federal oversight. We were promised we would be out of it. And they're still, we were talking about this before, they're still in it for like 20 years. Yeah. Like, this is ridiculous.
They'll never stop.
And it's because these monitors, again, I'm all about transparency and getting better, growth mindset. I want that, but these guys are just making money.
They're getting paid.
They're getting paid to monitor and supervise the department. By the way,
it's turned into an entire industry over 20 years. It's an industry.
Yeah. Well, they also, there was an original 25 task, but then they create subtasks. Yeah. And they're like, you know what? Actually, you should start doing this. And so things get changed.
They get to make it up as they go.
100%. And that's what they're doing. They're moving the goal line, right? The goalpost every couple, and that bothered me. And then the other big thing was just the lack of trust for the organization. Like, you're putting me in very dangerous situations regularly. I don't trust you that you're going to back me up. That bothered me. And I thought San Francisco at the time, I don't know about now, but was a lot, at least they were more pro the officer and like taking care of them and just and just looking after really their themselves. And they cared more about their troops. And so that was why I left.
What did you find out when you got there?
You know, I mean, listen, at the time in 2013, it was all those, it was a great place.
Lived up to the hype?
Yep. I started in the Tenderloin, which was very different from anything in Oakland. I mean, people were shooting drugs up right in front of the police station. I mean, literally, I'd walk out and some guy, I'm like, and he's like, oh, sorry, bro. Like, dude, come on, have some respect, man. And they didn't even know they were in front of the station. That's how bad it was. So the other thing I remember is clearly on FTO is stepping over poop in the street. Mm-hmm. And my FTO goes, that's human shit right there. I'm like, how do you know? He's like, you'll know after a while. So that was very interesting.
I'm laughing, but like I could go up there now. I can go out the streets in San Jose and I know. Like, there's enough of it here now.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. And I think the big thing I learned in San Francisco was that in Oakland, I dealt with violent people. In San Francisco, I dealt with crazy people in terms of, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, just literally. I mean, I never dealt with so many people like, they would call it 5150 or you put them on a 5150 hold, but just mentally unstable. And I mean, I just never had that much exposure. Again, Oakland was more just violent, people carrying out violent crimes. And there's that in SF too, but the majority is like just crazy. People are crazy. So that was the big difference. And then the big incident that changed everything for San Francisco was the Mario Woods incident that a lot of people know about. Again, the guy, I'm not here to comment on it. Did it look bad? Absolutely. I will say it looked bad, but it was justified. Technically, per the law, it was justified. And
it was rough to watch.
It's rough to watch. I would have never used those tactics. And that's just me. I would have never done that. Based on my training in Oakland, we were a little bit sharper and I would have never done that. But
interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't. San Francisco was just at the time, honestly, they were just behind in tactics. Oakland, maybe because of the federal consent, but I don't even think it was really that. I think when you look at police departments, Oakland and LA, they're exposed to the most and they just adapt the fastest.
Right. And they respond, yeah.
And SF has just always had a mentality of just being lackadaisical and training's not their thing. It's more of like just living the good life. Everyone will say San Francisco is a New York police department or an East Coast police department on the West Coast. And it is. And it's laid back and that's just how things are. So tactics, that's not that it is now, but it wasn't then. And so that's why you saw the poor tactics. Actually, people were doing what they were trained to do. And they reached the highest level of their training, which was sad. And I would have never, we all say like, that would have never happened in Oakland. But per the law, technically, the guy had a knife. He was shot multiple times with a less lethal beanbag, less lethal use of force. And he kept getting up. He kept getting up, grabbing the knife, and then he walked towards an officer in a stabbing motion. He had already stabbed somebody a couple hours ago. So this guy wasn't the nicest guy. But I mean, I wouldn't have done what they did. But the end result, it is what it is. And that changed everything. And then that made San Francisco quickly turned into the Oakland in terms of oversight. I will say, however, the supervisors, I still feel like they look after you in terms of just the care. There's still some of that, like, in Oakland, I always felt like I was a suspect if I got into use of force.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Sergeants would come. It's like, Joel, why'd you use force? And I didn't use force that often, but Like if I did, then it was something happened, right? Whereas San Francisco, that usually I never experienced that. Usually it was like, hey, are you okay? That was the first question they'd ask you. So it was very different, and I appreciate that about SF.
So they took care of you. They seem to have your best interests in mind, and from a department perspective until it didn't.
Yeah. So let me jump in there. 2021, here we are. By the way, in this pandemic, right? It wasn't a pandemic. We know, I mean, by the definition of pandemic, this was not a pandemic. I'm a very big natural health guy. So I'm sorry. Just for me, I'm all about, I respect whatever you want to do, but don't tell me to wear a mask when the science just doesn't show that they work. Like, I'm happy to wear a mask. And here's the thing, I'm happy to get an injection in my body. Do you think I want to, kill my own grandma or my mother? My parents are in their 70s. Do you think I would want to do that? Absolutely not. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they're all in their 70s. I would never do something to hurt somebody else. But this product that they want to inject in people over the pandemic, it was a joke in my opinion. And also the science doesn't show that it stood up to that. And so
it actually is showing the opposite of all that right now.
Yes, it is.
It's kind of a little bit of I told you so, but I don't usually operate my life like that. But I'm going to say it. I fucking told you so. So, I mean, I get it. And I'm the same way, man. I mean, my parents are in their 70s and 80s now, right? And I don't have grandparents, but I have little nephew who's 2, and at the time was literally 1 year, a newborn, premature, very premature, 8 weeks premature. Like I don't want to put anybody at risk either. I have a health, my business is literally rooted in the vested interest of my clients and members having their own health. So
yeah.
I wouldn't want to put any of them at risk, but the thing didn't smell right
Yeah.
from the get-go. And to your point, being a health and wellness guy, that's a really broad statement. A lot of people could claim that. But the point of this is you've always taken personal responsibility for your health and wellness, and you don't want to be told what to do without some legitimate data, backing, history, whatever, let's provide me some logic here. Provide me some logic about why I should be doing this and how this is going to help me and the community around me, my family, whatever else. Because right now you're doing a really poor job of that. And not only that, now you're telling me I have to do something, which already gives me a certain level of resistance, right? Wait, why do I have to do this? I've been taking care of myself. I'm not sick. My folks aren't sick. My in-law, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, why again? Why? I mean, what answers did you hear?
So a couple of things. So pandemic, what are we starting? 2020,
Yep.
I guess. So I remember I was a trainer at the San Francisco Police Academy. So I had a great job. I was a use of force trainer with a couple of other people. So I was full-time at the academy. Well, when the pandemic hit, they said, well, we have no use for you here at the academy because we're going to shut the academy down for 2 weeks. You know what? Let's just send you out to the Tenderloin because the mayor doesn't like the fact that everyone's congregating. The homeless are congregating because that's just terrible. And we don't want them congregating because that's how COVID spreads. So we need you to shuffle people around.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. I got to chuckle. They're congregating and because this got so wild up there with regard to what they ended up doing because of this congregation that was funded privately through the city and how they ended up dealing with this. Maybe we can come back to that. But yeah, we have this problem that we've had here for years and years and years. We've effectively cultivated this thing, and now it's an actual problem because we don't want to spread COVID.
Well,
that's the reason it's a problem. We don't want to spread COVID.
Well, it's a big deal.
We're shooting up on the steps of City Hall, but COVID's the problem.
It is, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when you shut down the world, then it's very eye-opening to what's going on.
There's consequences, yes.
It's empty. And so the world, downtown of San Francisco was empty, except not Union Square, but right across from the mayor. I'll think of it in a second. The little plaza there, that was full of homeless because yes, they didn't go anywhere. They have nowhere to go. And so it was an eyesore for the mayor to drive by every day. And then here I have this tough stance on COVID. Oh, wait, I'm allowing the homeless to be congregated. So S.F.P.D, I need you to go and shuffle these people around.
I need your help.
Move them around. 100%. So I just laugh because I go back to that day and nobody gave a fuck about my health then.
Nobody gave a fuck about those people's health either, by the way.
100%.
Not until then, right? And now it's like, well, now they are a health problem. We got to get them out of here. And by the way, I don't like looking at them. Sorry, I'm up on the.
So they would go to Glide, they would get their food, and they would come back and eat it. And my job was to tell them, like, hey, understand you're eating your food. Totally get it. When you're done, you mind.
You got to go.
You just kind of like, and most of them were pretty good. And so that was my job for like 2-3 weeks or something out of the academy. It just, again, I'm only highlighting this to show you just the hypocrisy of like concerned about my health. You were not concerned about my health at that moment. And I remember even in Florida, they were saying, why don't I just get law enforcement to go out and just get the thing and then they'll be like the immunity kind of people. So it's just people forget this because time passes and they forget all these ridiculous policies. But yeah, just go ahead, Joel, go out there and get, I mean, they didn't care. They gave me a mask. And by the way, I could care less because I was never worried about that getting anything because I trusted I trusted my, innate ability and my immune system. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. And I'll just say for people that I was prepared more than most people for the pandemic, just because I had done a lot of research into the industry. Having my first kid, I had to ask myself very early on, like, what do I think about these vaccines? Mm-hmm. This is just regular vaccines. This isn't COVID. And I will just tell you the things that I discovered and learned about, as you said, didn't smell right.
Yep.
And what I will tell anybody that's wondering, what are you talking about, Joel? This is all I can say. Go out, and I promise you, go out and look for a study they use a placebo and they actually use a control. I promise you, you will never find a vaccine study that has those things. And you're probably saying, that's impossible. They've done studies. Yes, they've done lots of studies. None of them had to have a legit placebo or control study. They've always at some point unblinded it or whatever, and you won't find that. And so until you do, I will take every product that you recommend. But
this vaccine will stand in history as the biggest one with that fits that bill. We just gave people shit. There was no placebo. There was no.
They actually started with one, and then they unblinded it.
Exactly.
Because they felt bad for the control study. They actually said, we feel bad for them that this COVID is running rampant. We feel really bad for them, so we're going to give it to them.
So here we go.
So we destroyed the placebo, the control.
So it's gone. So it makes it an illegitimate, basically, a test or study.
Yep.
Depends on who's looking at it. I guess if you're WHO or NIH, whatever, you just do. You do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yep.
But here we are. Okay, so you're not down. You're not down with taking the shot.
Not happening. And so in July of 2021, they started talking about, they're going to give us access, which is really funny about law enforcement too. People were complaining when they couldn't, they purposely did this, I think, to just kind of piss off the police at the time. But all the other first responders were able to get it. And then police were like last. So we always felt like, oh, come on, how come we're last for everything? I could care less. Anyways, we were given the opportunity to get it. At first it was, your choice. And then they had us, you get out of there. And then you had exemptions. And that's typical for every organization. So I filed a religious exemption, as many of my colleagues did, and they accepted it. Awesome. And then a month passed and they said, it's no good. It's not legit. So they said, you got to get the shot because...
Wait, what's not legit? Your claim for medical exemption or the medical exemption paperwork or religious exemption paperwork itself?
So it's a little bit sneaky what they did. So I'll explain it the best I can. So I filed a religious exemption, got approved the next day. Then what happened was there was about 150 of us that got approved. Another 150 of us, we had like a month to do it. So some people were later at filing for their exemption. There's about another 150 or so that filed their exemption, but they halted the process. From what I'm understanding, someone didn't like the fact that all these exemptions were getting approved by the police. So they said, halt this. I'll start looking at these exemptions from now on. But they realized they had a problem because they already approved 150 and they had 150 to go. So they said, we'll ask them a secondary set of questions. So now they can loop us all back into one group again. And that's what they did. So then when I filed my secondary set of questions that they asked, there was like 3 questions. they said
They knew what they were doing.
They determined that I was no longer my religious exemption. My religiousness didn't pass the test.
To be honest, they had no intention of awarding that religious exemption.
No, and I think 99. I think there was only 8 exemptions of all of San Francisco from a FOIA request. I think that was the only thing.
Of 300.
Oh no! That's of the entire city and county of San Francisco.
Gotcha.
3 out of 300 police officers. None of them got, I don't think any of them got approved. Now, if you look at Marin County, if you just go a city over, 97% of their exemptions got approved. San Francisco had like 0.08%. Something is wrong. So yeah, so that's what happened. So in September, they said, well, now your exemption's invalid, so now you have to get it. And that's what I was left to. Either get the shot by October 13th or you're done. And I said, well, I guess you're gonna have to fire me then, because I'm not gonna do it.
Good for you.
I was a little surprised that they did fire me, but they did. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Well, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. It's not like you can sit and really contemplate it. I mean, they come with you at a timeline like that. It's not something you've been sitting around for a couple of years contemplating retirement or maybe making a career change or a career move. It's this or else, and you have X amount of weeks to get it done. Otherwise, we're going to fire you. And then also, you have to look at like the totality of the situation. It's never been done before. Right. This is all very brand new. I imagine you're looking around the rest of the country and going, yeah, there's a lot of threats going on, but you're seeing things be extended and, deadlines this and people getting out of it any other way. I think it's reasonable to think that, yeah, this isn't going to happen. Like they're making threats. They're trying to kind of bully us into doing it, but I have the right, to decide what goes in my body and what doesn't. And if there's a city in the fucking United States that stood behind that for as long as I can remember, as long as it's been a city, it's the city of San Francisco. So why should you be treated any different as a police officer that works for the city of San Francisco? Lo and behold, they went ahead and did it. And they pulled the plug. That is shocking to me. I mean, you've just gone through this whole career and your passion for doing it and the things that you're able to get accomplished, the upsides, the downsides, the things you've been through physically, personally, emotionally, physically, all of those kind of things. And now here you are being let go because you disagree. And not only that, I don't know how you feel about this, but at this point in time, there has to be a certain level of validation to why you held on to your principles the way you did, particularly with what we found out now.
Yeah. They called me, they literally fired me and said that I was a direct threat to the public. They actually issued a stay away order against me during my time. I mean, it was heartless.
So now you're a criminal.
Yeah.
If I go to
the building, if I go to the S.F.P.D building, I'd be in violation of that stay away order. Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Well, man, that's a tough and a rough transition. So obviously that leads up to where we were at the beginning of the conversation. Can you just kind of walk us through real quick how you handled that? Obviously you can't go to work. You decide you got to get out of here. What happened, man?
Yeah. So, man, a whole bunch of things going through my mind just because, I have a family. It's like, what are you going to do? How do you support, how are you going to support? And I'm actually, the reason I think I was surprised that I got fired was I thought like, no, like they're not going to fire 150 of us or whatever. But what happened is the numbers started dwindling. People started caving. Mm-hmm. And, at that time I felt for people because
they all have to make their own decisions. Yeah.
And I know these guys, they have families, Joel, I have a mortgage. I got to do it. I get it, man. Totally get it.
It's unfortunate, but just for the same reasons you're sticking to your guns and you want people to respect your decisions, you've got to respect theirs, man, for their own reasons.
And here's the thing, and I'm kind of changed though from that, Scott.
I have too. I'm just saying at that point in time, there's a lot of things happening.
You and I both talk about that. There's that carnal side of us, and then there's the drop the ego, let it go, have compassion for, and that's really where I kept coming from, a place of compassion for these folks and just saying, I get it, man. Like that's a lot for you to have to think about do you do that? Like actually, I actually even thought like, man, you're actually really brave. Like you knew you didn't want to do it, but they were sacrificing their own health for the betterment of their family, right? Now I've a little bit changed and kind of thought about it more. And I think, actually, that's bullshit. Like, if you had stood with us, this wouldn't be a problem. And you would have, now people are regretting and all this stuff. But if you had held strong, and I promise you, if you look at other agencies, and I just know, I have a good friend that's a captain at the LAPD, they were under the same gun that we were, but guess what? They had 2,000 cops issue exemptions. And out of a 10,000 police force, they weren't going to play around and lose 20% of their cops. So they didn't do it. Guess what? Numbers. They just made them test. S.F.P.D, all these places would have done the same thing if we had fought and stayed together. We see that all around the nation. The companies, the places that stood together, they were the ones that won. And I just think the reason I've kind of changed and I'm advocating for people to stand up, because it's going to happen again in some way. And then also just in your own life.
1,000%.
You're going to have to stand up. You need to take a stand.
The way you handle one thing is the way you handle everything.
Yep. And so I just hope that this is a lesson, just a reminder, like, don't drop your sword again, because it's going to happen. And they know, it's even a psychological thing. They know if they can take a little bit, they'll take more. And so this was the first test. What will happen the next time? So, but yeah, so that led me to where I am now. I felt like it was a sign just from God, source, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is a time to lean full in. So I dove right into my coaching.
The podcasting.
I doubled down on the podcast that I was already doing, and just kind of, dove straight in, man. And then at the same time, my family, we ended up moving to Idaho. And I was actually fly commuting back and forth to San Francisco at the time. And then that happened. So I just feel like things happen for a reason. I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't lean into my fears and just keep going. Like, starting a business is not typical from the 9 to 5, and you have to be somewhat crazy in the head to like do something like that. It's just a different mentality. It's a different from checking in, checking out, and just punching out. You have to, the business never stops, right? And so I'm constantly learning and getting better. And but I also feel like, man, the more I'm aligned with my truth and saying who I say I am and standing up for what I believe, because again, I could have easily, and I'm sure there's people I don't know these people, but I'm easily could have, made a fake Vax card and just passed it off, and my life would be the same. And I wouldn't even be talking, and it'd be great. And I would be making my $100,000+ salary, and nothing would be changing. But that's also would be a travesty that nothing changed and that I didn't get better, that I didn't learn from this. And so here I am now, just, I think living actually for one of the first times in my life, living my true self and my highest version of me, which is doing my health coaching, doing the podcast and everything else. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting that kind of an incident kind of pushed the next level for you. And like we talk about levels, and we talked about angles earlier, but we're talking about levels and leveling up and the things that it takes to do that, and the incidents or the situations and circumstances, I guess, that you go through in life that often push you one way or another to, and that could be a lower level, right? And in this case, it pushed you to a higher level. And that's the type of people I love being around. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today, because it shows it speaks specifically to the things that we are constantly trying to get across on our show, which is about self-reliance, being independent, the resiliency of the human, and what they can get accomplished when they practice those things. Those things don't just happen. You have to make decisions. Those are tough ones. You have to go through tough things. You got to get punched in the face. And those split-second decisions are just as important as the longer term, like, I really need to think through this process. And the more of that you go through, the more of that stuff you open yourself up to, the better position you are to make the best decision for you at that particular time, whatever it is, under duress or not under duress, so that you can move forward. And while I'm sure the streets would be safer if you were still on them, doing your thing, because clearly anybody listening can tell how passionate you are about it and how much you did care. Again, making 1 stop a day or 6 stops a day, you get to impact so many different people at such a higher level through the podcast and through, this crazy technology that we have out there that can reach certain people. It gives me such positive vibes to see that, what's come out of that potential negativity and being pushed into a corner. So when people get pushed into a corner and they get squeezed, a lot of times what you see is the shit come out, right? And we talked about that earlier, the 5 pounds and 10 pounds and all that stuff. But that's not what happened with you, man. And that doesn't come without some suffering, right? And some real soul searching sometimes. Yeah. And you got family, and there's finance, and there's sacrifice that everybody's making. And I know that gets talked a lot about on your podcast, you know, and just like, hey, these things are necessary, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. You know, let's just reframe it, look at it in a different way. And if you had something to leave us with today, you know, as we walk away, outside of kind of like where people can find you and find out more about your program, currently and the stuff that you're doing, what would you leave us with today, man?
Two big things. One is what you're just talking about. And I had to ask when I was about to be fired, I was scared. I was in fear, like everybody. But the difference is what I did with it. And one of the things I asked myself was, what am I going to lose? What am I so scared about? And when I wrote down my list, I was going to lose my house. I was going to lose all my money. And I kind of took a breath.
That's heavy, man.
It's heavy. But you know what I realized at the end? I was like, they can't take my family. They can't take my soul. They can't take who the fuck I am. Mm-hmm. And I started to smile. And I'm like, I could lose it all, but I know how to make money now. And so I'm not scared anymore. So let's fucking go. And so that was also the impetus, the drive that made me go, oh, like, this isn't so bad. Like, all I'm going to do is just lose all my money. Great. I'll make it back again somehow.
Yeah. It's that shirt you're wearing right now. It's abundance, man. It's the abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would say for everybody, and this is what I've learned over the last 2 years, is aggressively take imperfect action. When I was just starting my business, I was worried about a post that I might, post, or how I might look, or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And there's people right now that are dying or crying themselves to sleep right now because you have a talent or you have a gift, but you're too concerned or scared about how it's going to look or how it's going to feel on Instagram. And that person is suffering at home. And I'll tell you really quick, I had a short story. I had a woman who reached out to me for weight loss. It's just weight loss, something superficial. This woman, we get on a call, I tell her the price of my program. She starts crying. Joel, I have $50 in my bank account. I can't afford your stupid program. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, I considered committing suicide 2 days before I even picked up the phone to call you. I'm like, whoa.
That's heavy too.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, stop. I mean, I'm a mandated reporter. Maybe am I a mandated reporter still? I might have to report this. Like, I'm thinking, oh, Jesus. But she tells me, like, I mean, again, this woman reached out to me for weight loss. Right. Here she is telling me she lost her job during the pandemic. She had to move back with her mom. She lost her girlfriend. Relationship fell apart. Think about committing suicide. She's that depressed. And she can't afford my program. I'm like, well, you need this program. Let's go. Like, Amazon's hiring people right now for like $2,000. You can get a $2,000 signing bonus. Like, what's stopping you? She went out the next day, sending me a photo of her getting her Amazon, applying to the job. And so that's just a simple story of like how much action you can do. My action wasn't perfect, but I was taking small steps and I was able to reach, and that was proof right there that there are people suffering and crying themselves to sleep and you don't even know it. And you can have so much impact if you just take imperfect action, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah. Put your fear aside. Just do it, man.
Yeah.
Just do it. I mean, don't do it frivolously. Don't do it, don't do it in a way that puts, other people at risk, but don't be afraid. Like, put your fear aside. That's what I get from, some of the solo talks I hear you talking on your podcast about. Sometimes these are like little 15-minute just chats that you're given. And that's what I get is like, what is stopping you? And most of the time it's fear, which manifests itself into a lot of other things. But I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming down today and visiting, telling your story, providing some real insight at a lot of different levels. But I think that the thing that comes out of this for me is like knowing you a little bit better now. It puts a lot more context to kind of what I hear you say and what I'm seeing you do. And it makes me excited to see what you're going to do kind of down the future, because the reality of this is this is very new for you, right?
Oh yeah.
And you're probably realizing these times, I know I did in my career path down this way, where like you stop and have to ask yourself, like, am I doing the right thing here? Like,
oh man, all the time, every day.
You're doing the fucking right thing, man. You just keep doing it. I mean, you're so at the kind of what I would look at as like the beginning of this journey, like you got this opportunity to do this other great career for a while. What a fucking blessing, that you have, that you found where you really feel like your truth is, because you're living that. And what's out in front of you now, man, I see nothing but great stuff now. So I can imagine what that extrapolates to over time. So fucking keep that up, dude.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you.
Man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.